is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this Tuesday night, September 30th, 2025. Oh boy. How many of you know who Mark Driscoll is? Oh, some of you do because you've been following our radio show and TV show and my books for many years. Mark Driscoll is a guy that just recently appeared on, well, I think it was yesterday, Turning Point USA's program. This is very discouraging to me. How many of you know this, quote, Pastor Mark Driscoll, that he is on video? I'm going to show it to you tonight. He claims he has this gift of discernment where, like a television, he can see the behavior of people from the past, including, as you'll hear, him tell a woman in counseling with her husband, have you told your husband about that 6'2" blonde you went to the hotel room with? He tells her the color of the bed sheets, the comforter, the drapes, what he did, what she did, I guess, with this 6'2" guy. I can see it like a TV screen. I get this discernment. I have this ability. Tells another young man, go and ask your relative if they did this to you. I can see things, he says. Wow. Well, I've been writing about this for years. Played the video for years. Warning about this guy. Really, I don't think that's what you call discernment, biblical discernment, God giving pornographic visions to you. Do you? This is also a guy that has said that Jesus made mistakes. Now, I have the receipts, folks. I have the videos. They're actually in my archive. You know me? You know how I talk about my archive all the time? worldviewtube.com/vault. I have all these clips of these people saying the craziest things. Many of them religious leaders. And I have them archived. I wrote about Mark Driscoll in my 2011 book as well, Religious Trojan Horse. I bring all this up to say we want a spiritual awakening and revival, but we do not want people like Mark Driscoll at all influencing our young people. You're going to hear why tonight. We don't want the new apostolic reformation and their false prophets and apostles or the word of faith. So let's be alert. Let's be diligent. Do you think Charlie Kirk, if he really knew everything about some of these people, would want to introduce young people to this? I don't think if he knew the truth. And you know what? We have to allow for grace because all of us are always learning. We should always be learning, acquiring more truth, wisdom, and knowledge. But I think if Charlie knew about Mark and maybe interviewed Mark before he died, I would think Charlie's a smart enough guy to look at some of these things and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. But there was Mark Driscoll yesterday appearing on Turning Point Action's program on their Twitter feed as well, X. I'm going to play some clips of Mark Driscoll and you ask yourself, is this what we want? Because this is what was part of the emergent church, as it was being called, that I was warning about going back as far as, well, starting in 2006. Very important that you hear this tonight. Alert your family and friends. And then pray that the leadership of Turning Point has discernment. Because we do want to see a biblical revival, not a false revival with false teachers. And I think that's exactly what Mark Driscoll is, a false teacher. How many of you, by the way, saw the speech today by President Trump to about 800 generals and admirals? I have to tell you, it was very, very odd. And it was, for me, a problem. I'm going to explain to you why. Now, I think this audience wants to support President Trump whenever we can, but we're going to call it the way we see it. I don't want to see the military politicized on the right or the left. And I was shocked at the rabbit trail he went off on today. He got off script. And the things he was saying, and I felt very uncomfortable for the people sitting there because they're military. They have a code of conduct they have to operate by. But then he went on to say some things about submarines, our submarines, China and Russia's ability that I can prove to you 100% is not true. So here's a big question. Who is feeding President Trump this information he then uses and goes out and talks to the generals and the admirals who know what he's saying is not true? These people know what our nuclear capabilities and stockpiles are really all about. They know what our submarines and military equipment can do compared to that of China or Russia and fifth and sixth generation warfare technology. Who is filling President Trump's head with this information? So he walks out and says things to these generals that many of them are sitting there going, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. It doesn't inspire confidence in their commander-in-chief. Is someone setting up President Trump for failure? I want Trump to succeed because that means America succeeds. But I also want him to, can I say, read the room? Understand there's a time and a place for a MAGA rally. And it's not with 800 generals and admirals. Not if we don't want the left politicizing the military. We can't do it on the right. We just need to walk in there as commander-in-chief, deliver the information, and leave. But today, some really strange things were said, and some things that just flat out weren't true. Which I ask again, are there neocons around President Trump that are feeding him information to set him up and make him believe America's military is stronger than it is, so he will poke the bear, Russia? These are fair questions. And people that are discerning, who want to make America great again, have no problem with someone asking these questions. Now, the people that are cult followers, they have a problem with this. But you're not cult followers. You're a thinker. You want to ask questions. It's always fine to ask questions. That's what you know to be true because you are a sane individual. But some people seem to have lost the ability of reason, logic, context, and are revealing ever increasingly their mental instability. So, for those who want to talk about this speech today and the good parts, the bad parts, the concerns, well, let's do it. Because it's really about you and me and our country, making our military strong again. But also asking ourselves as American citizens, does our president have all the information? Is he being misled? They misled him down the road of COVID and warp speed. I sure hope they're not walking him into a war, believing that our military and nuclear capabilities is far superior than that of Russia or China, because if they are, well, then don't complain when your children and grandchildren get drafted or something worse happens in regards to an attack on our homeland. This is the time to be asking questions. So I'm going to be joined tonight by David Pyne. I'm going to be joined tonight by Shahram Hadian. Shahram and myself both didn't know each other at the time, but were confronting the weird theology and doctrine of Pastor Mark Driscoll, who just popped up on Turning Point's program yesterday. I want to ask him about it. I also want to talk to Anni Cyrus tonight. I want to talk to Annie and see, where is Hamas? Where is Hamas when it comes to the 20-point plan? Where are we at with all that? So let's get an update. Now, I want to remind all of you, I will be off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Actually, I won't be off. I'll be off the air, but I will be working, getting ready for our National Worldview Weekend, Friday night and Saturday. And if you would like to live stream it, you can do that with any level of membership to the Vault at worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Okay? Oh, I want to have Dr. Lana on tonight to talk about Tylenol and vaccines draining the glutathione out of our bodies. Isn't it interesting how much we've talked about glutathione the last few years? The average person doesn't know anything about it. And until I started working with Dr. Lana, I didn't know about glutathione. But it's so important. But it's been in the news this week. Hey, here's an area where President Trump did a great job talking about Tylenol, vaccines. Talk about glutathione being depleted from our bodies or that of our little children when they get these shots or take those Tylenol pills or the little dropper. We would give them the liquid child Tylenol and those little droppers. Remember that? Parents. So thankful that he's brought that up and this topic of glutathione's coming out. So I want to talk to Dr. Lana about that. All right. If you want to watch our conference this weekend, worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Remember, all of our memberships are available to you at any level, monthly, 6 month, a year, and any membership level that you watch this weekend. And then all of our sponsors are at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. I hope you'll find a product or two there that you can use and support us in the process, will you? Very, very important. So thank you for doing that. I'm going to be joined now by Shahram Hadian. I had him on radio today, TV today. And I want to play some video clips for you. And I want to give this audience the same warning that I gave my radio and TV audience at 1 o'clock Central. And that is, I believe we are sadly going to be watching for what is going to be an increase in spiritual deception. And it is going to require everyone that wants to be discerning, that does not want to be deceived, to be extra vigilant, to pray, study your Bible, ask the Lord for discernment, wisdom, knowledge, the acquisition of truth, wisdom, the application of truth. Pray for discernment, wisdom, knowledge. Don't be led by emotion. Don't be led by group think, the herd mentality. Because I believe we are entering a new time of increased spiritual and political and economic and societal deception. Back in 2006, you go into my Worldview Tube and you put in the name Mark Driscoll. You will see me warning an awful lot about a so-called pastor by the name of Mark Driscoll. He was really one of the guys pushing what we called then the emergent church, the mixing of postmodernism with spirituality and pragmatism, and even a spirituality that I think is pagan. Wrote about it extensively, did lots of radio shows and TV shows on it, starting in around 2006. And you'll find me talking about him in my archive since 2006, Mark Driscoll, and in many of my books. Many of you don't even know who Mark Driscoll is. But yesterday, this is what I found. Look at this. Turning Point USA Action had Mark Driscoll on their set speaking. Folks, this should chill all of you that know the truth. And those of you that do, you're disturbed by this. People are texting me and emailing saying this makes me so heart sick. My stomach hurts. We better be praying for discernment and wisdom for the leadership at Turning Point USA if this is any indication where they want to go. We better be very aware of people like Mark Driscoll, the Emergent Church, the New Apostolic Reformation, that I wrote a whole book on, really, in 2011, the New Apostolic Reformation, the Word of Faith. Because this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for a spiritual awakening and revival. But my question is it going to be a biblical spiritual awakening and revival, or will it be a false one? We all want to see a biblical one. There is one coming, a biblical revival coming. The Bible talks about it. It happens during the tribulation period. So many are becoming believers, but they're being murdered almost as fast as they come to the Lord. The Bible talks about it. They're under the altar saying to the Lord, how long before you avenge our death? He says, here's a white robe. Put this on and wait a while. But he avenges their death eventually. So I'm going to give you the good news. There's a great spiritual revival coming. I pray this is part of that, but it could also end up being a great spiritual awakening that is not of the Lord. And if you are going to bring in guys like Mark Driscoll, and you're going to give a platform to Word of Faith guys and the New Apostolic Reformation and their false prophets and false apostles, then that is not of the Lord. Let's pray that's not what this is. Let's give grace to people to learn, to recognize, and to correct course. And let's pray that's what happens in all of our lives. Turning Point if they're going to interview guys and give a platform to guys like Mark Driscoll, this is a time to start praying very hard for the leadership of that organization to have real discernment, because this is a very troubling sign. And you say, I don't know anything about Mark Driscoll. Well, let me play a clip for you that's from several years ago. It's in some of my documentaries and books and TV shows, the transcripts in my book from 2011, Religious Trojan Horse. Watch this and tell me if you think this is of the Lord. Watch.
Some people actually see things. This may be gift of discernment. On occasion, I see things. I see things. Like I was meeting with one person, and they didn't know this, but they were abused when they were a child. And I said, when you were a child, you were abused. This person did this to you, physically touched you this way. He said, how do you know? I said, I don't know. It's like I got a TV right here, and I'm seeing it. I said, no, that never happened. I said, well, go ask them. Go ask them if they actually did what I think they did, and I see that they did. And they went and asked this person, when I was a little kid, did you do this? And the person said, yeah, but you were only like a year or two old. How do you remember that? I said, oh, Pastor Mark told me. Okay. I'm not a guru. I'm not a freak. I don't talk about this. If I did talk about it, everybody would want to meet with me, and I'd end up like one of those guys on TV. But some of you have this visual ability to see things. There was one woman I dealt with. She'd never told her husband that she had committed adultery on him early in the relationship. I said, she's sitting there with her husband. I said, I think the root of all this, I think Satan has a foothold in your life because you've never told your husband about that really tall blonde guy that you met at the bar. And then you went back to the hotel and you laid on your back and you undressed yourself and he climbed on top of you and you had sex with him and snuggled up with him for a while, and deep down in your heart, even though you had just met him, you desired him because secretly he is the fantasy body type. I said, you remember that place? It was that cheap hotel with that certain colored bedspread. You had sex with the light on because you weren't ashamed and you wanted him to see you. You wanted to see him. She's just looking at me like, I said, it was about 10 years ago. See everything. She says, she looks at her husband. He says, is that true? She says, yeah. He was 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah. And there are some people that have real gift of discernment, and I'm not saying I'm 100% always right with it, but some of you are going to have gift of discernment, and you need to learn to grow in the use of that gift. And sometimes people will hear things, sometimes people will see things.
So discernment now is the ability to obtain pornographic imagery like a television. You just heard him say it. Now, folks, that's one of many things. You could go, go to Grok. Go to Grok and ask Grok, tell me all of the, or as many as you can, of the sexual statements that Mark Driscoll has publicly said or published. Ask Grok that and see what you get. I remember when someone called me and said that this guy, Mark Driscoll, Pastor Mark Driscoll, had put up a website, something about Christian nymphos. I was like, what? And I was told what was on there. And it was so graphic sexually. I said, look, he's out there, but no guy claiming to be a pastor would go put that kind of website up with that on it for the world to see deliberately. Well, I was wrong. I went to the website. I looked at it. And I saw the descriptions of things he was writing about or was being posted on that website. Sexual things that you could try with your spouse that were like really, I'm not going to mention. It's like no sane person would do that. And then what really shocked me was there was an opportunity to engage in conversations beneath these little articles. And men and women were in there engaging in conversations like you would see on a Facebook, not in real time, but back and forth. I'm like, are you kidding me? Now, I don't know whatever happened to that website, but I saw it with my own eyes. And the things that this guy has written or said or had published are shocking. And yet they're going to call him a pastor? And they do. I'm sorry. This guy does not meet the biblical qualifications, I don't think, of a pastor, a shepherd, an overseer, an elder. This is very serious. I think this is not, I don't know if Charlie Kirk, how well Charlie knew him, but even if Charlie had him on and interviewed him, you know, there are sometimes you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and you have to give people grace to say, well, you know, I have to think that if Charlie had lived and this information came out and it was presented to him, he might go, okay, this is troubling. Thank you for bringing this to me. Do you think promoting a guy like Mark Driscoll's in keeping with the worldview of what Charlie has said on video about marriage and sexuality? I'm just saying, asking questions. This is really troubling. But I'm not the only one that knows about Mark Driscoll. My next guest, Pastor Shahram Hadian, actually pastored in Washington State, where Mark originally had his so-called church called Mars Hill. And he knows about the website I'm talking about because he saw it too, years before Shahram and I even knew each other. Let me ask Shahram to come on now. Shahram, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me again.
You saw the website I'm referring to that he had or his organization put up, right?
Yes.
Can you validate
absolutely.
that what I'm saying is not made up? It's not exaggerated?
It's absolutely not exaggerated. 100% validated because my experience, we had known about Mark Driscoll for a long time because Mars Hill was the largest church movement in the Washington State area and in the Seattle area. And it was sort of the, hip and, kind of, all young people kind of went there. And I first heard about Mark because Sunday nights they would do the service that was sort of an adult-oriented service where it was only for 18 and over. I've never heard a service where like, hey, you have to not have children come. And the purpose of the service was they were going to have very frank conversation about dating, but also about the concept of sexual activity. And what perplexed me and the feedback that I was hearing, Brannon, was that they were doing this in front of young people who were not married. So imagine going in front of young people in our culture who are struggling to be celibate, who are struggling to be pure for Christ and save themselves from marriage. And now in the context of that situation, you have a pastor coming up there, and I started watching some of these videos, and it shocked me the graphic nature of his description about his sex life with his wife. Now, it wasn't just talking about in generic terms, it was talking about specifically what he did with his wife. And I found this to be unbelievably shocking and unbelievably irresponsible because you have young people, again, that are already struggling in a hyper-sexualized culture. And they're already struggling to stay pure and not look at pornography. And now I'm listening to them talk about how some of these things are okay in marriage, like pornography. Then I was at a prayer meeting a number of months later, and as we were praying, somebody brought up that Mark Driscoll had written a new book about marriage. And I think it was called Marriage. I was actually looking up on his website, but I think it was called Marriage Wins or something. Anyway, the point was in this book, there's chapters that he has on his sex life and how he goes into, again, graphic detail about things that him and his wife do in the bedroom, which was unbelievably, again, inappropriate, not in a generic term talking about the Song of Solomon or talking about, intimacy, but very specific details about him and his wife. Now, people started giggling, and there was a gentleman sitting next to me on the left that was kind of getting red in the face, and I didn't know who that was until after the meeting when someone said, well, that was Mark Driscoll's father-in-law. He's married to his wife, Grace.
He's married to his daughter. He's married to his daughter.
His daughter, Grace. And I was like shocked. So then when I talked to this person, they said, yeah, they have a website that's called Christian Nymphos that you can go on there, and they have all sorts of back and forth interaction about all sorts of different sexually explicit things that they do within, quote, the confines of a Christian marriage.
But let me stop right there. But yet you can validate that when I went on the website, and this was before I knew you and I didn't know each other then, and I didn't know you saw the website until today, that on this website, these people, men and women, could engage in conversations about these very graphic sexual things that they were doing or wanting to do with their spouse. And men and women who are not married are engaging in conversations back and forth about this. And I was like, how does anyone put this on a website and call themselves a pastor and have people engaging like this? I mean, this is everything that's not Christian.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, just like the 18 and up service that I felt was going to open the door for temptation into the hearts of young people, again, that are already in a hyper-sexualized culture, and they're being bombarded. I mean, think about young men and how much temptation there is with pornography and sexual content out there. And now you add to it a Christian pastor who is well-respected and well-known. Everybody wanted to follow Mark Driscoll. By the way, the other problem that I want to point this out, one of the problems we started having with Mars Hill was Mark Driscoll removed all their elders, and he put in there a board. And I knew at that moment that was the beginning of the end for Mars Hill, because once you become an unbiblical church and you don't have elders, you don't have any overseers within that church, everybody became a yes man to him. And he was such a powerful such a powerful figure that he basically, everybody said yes to him. Eventually Mars Hill imploded. Eventually Mars Hill completely blew apart. And he went off the radar for a long time and then resurfaced in Arizona. And until today, until Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I was not following Mark Driscoll until he came on the scene. But you're right, the Christian Nymphos, that website, which, by the way, many of the leftists in the Seattle area were talking about it, and were kind of promoting it as in, wow, look at this. As if this is the true nature of Christianity with regards to individuals, as you said, on there being able to ask whatever question they want, whatever sexually explicit question. And if you looked at the chats and if you looked at their questions, every single thing, Brandon, I was flabbergasted. I was so grieved. And then one other fact that I mentioned to you earlier, I started getting people coming to our church or connecting across my path who were then sort of refugees from Mars Hill. They had left the church because there was such a controlling environment, and they were being affected in their marriage because the women were saying, man, my husband now is demanding every time he comes home, he wants sex. Because Mark Driscoll said, the wife should be ready at any moment. The wife should be there to serve the husband. The wife should be willing to do whatever the husband asks him to do. This was abuse. This was spiritual abuse. And now I'm having to counsel these people. Now, I don't know if Driscoll has turned over a new leaf. I don't know if Driscoll ever confessed or apologized for these things. But this is now who Turning Point is platforming, along with what you already raised, which was the very, very questionable description of how he's getting discernment. You and I talked about this on radio. Discernment is a spiritual gift. Of course, we all pray for discernment. And can the Lord sometimes give us a sense of discernment about a person or about a situation? Sure. But in a graphic nature where God's going to show us someone having sex, like he described? Give me a break. Where is that scriptural? Where God's going to show me that this is in detail what they're doing? Do I need to know all of that in order to be able to hold someone to account if they're in an adulterous relationship? So again, this is unbiblical, what he said. It's not scriptural. It's not a scriptural discernment. And the patterns of things they were doing, which again, I don't know if he's ever repented for those things. Maybe he has, but he still talks in, he's got a thing called Real Life Ministries where he's constantly critiquing like content online. And I've seen him even sometimes do things with his wife, Grace. But again, not something that I think that would be of the cup of Turning Point when they're trying to promote biblical marriages and biblical families. This is not something that is good for marriages, especially when they're promoting the use of, at the time, they were promoting the use of pornography was okay. The use of fantasizing was okay. I don't know if I can even say this, but they were encouraging men, if they were like, let's say, traveling, let me say it in a way, they were encouraging men to be able to please themselves on the road while fantasizing, because they were not promoting the concept that if you're traveling away from your wife, have enough self-control to wait to come home to be intimate with your spouse, and you don't have to, do it on the road where you're fantasizing and pleasing your. These are all the things that were being promoted on Christian Nymph and also through his book. And it's shocking.
Yeah. Well, if this is going to come into Turning Point, and this is going to be the kind of pastor they recommend, this goes back to my concerns when I heard all these young people are flooding into churches, because my initial reaction was,
right.
What kind of churches are they going to be flooding back to? Okay.
Yeah.
I want them to go to Bible teaching churches, and I appreciate the fact that Erica said that. Find a Bible teaching church. She said that. And I appreciate that. But I'm thinking, first of all, where are these kids going to go? Most of them are going to think they're showing up at Bible teaching church, and they're going to show up at places that are now the new Christianity, which is not Christianity at all, much of it. But here's the thing. If they're going to platform guys like this, then a guy like Driscoll, that's a real problem. And I'm very concerned about the word of faith, the new apostolic reformation, and some of those people that might be trying to rush into this void and to use these people for their replacement theology, for their dominionism, their seven mountain mandate, all the things that are in my book, Religious Trojan Horse from 2011. Do you join me in that concern?
100%. I actually spoke on this a few months before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, because I looked at, again, who he was platforming, not only the likes of the anti-Semites like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, although he had not apparently spoken on a stage with Candace since 2019, but what my concern was he was so connected to Brannon, many of the people that were in the New Apostolic Reformation movement, the new prophets, they claim to be all prophets, they claim to be all apostles. And by the way, in the New Apostolic Reformation movement, I'm sure you've covered this many, many times, we have to understand when they use the word prophet, they're using the word prophet as not a gift of prophecy, but as you're equal to the prophets of the Old Testament. When they use the word apostle, they're not saying, hey, somebody that has an apostolic heart where you're concerned about, like, for example, there's many times that I'm very concerned about the greater body of Christ, not just a local church. And I would say about myself, well, that feels like the heart of Paul, where it's kind of an apostolic heart. No, they say the apostles today are equal to the apostles of the Word of God, of the New Testament, and therefore there is revelation today that can be new revelation. That's very, very dangerous. And so if these young people are getting sucked into these type of churches, which in my opinion is going to be the predominant churches that are going to be connected to a group like Turning Point USA, because what does Turning Point USA try to do? They're trying to revive the nation politically and spiritually. Okay, but then the problem is now how do you go from a heart of revival and repentance to then we're going to take over dominionism, we're going to take over the seven mountains of society, the seven mountain mandate, and we're going to rule and reign because we are now in the kingdom of God. We're post-millennial, rather than understanding that this world is not yet God's kingdom and the kingdom is yet to come and the days are waxing more evil. So this has been my concern long before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, long before this movement. And then one other thing you and I talked about on radio earlier was, what about the ecumenicalism? What about now if you bring in the Mormons and you bring in, you had some Hindus, right? J.D. Vance's wife is Hindu. You had, who's the national security director? Why am I missing her name?
Tulsi Gabbard?
Tulsi Gabbard, right? If I understand, she's either got a Catholic background or I thought one of her parents had a Hindu background. But nevertheless, even during his memorial, where you saw some amazing presentations of the gospel, I think Frank Turek, I think Pastor Rob McCoy. These guys did present, I think, the gospel. And of course, Pastor Rob McCoy gave the altar call. But yet, Tucker's thing, which is very uncomfortable with regards to the whole, the Jews killed Jesus. They were eating hummus. And you had the Catholic, you had, I thought, Brannon, that one of his staff guys was Mormon. So you see that under the guise of political revival, it's very dangerous to become into the spiritual revival. And it is part of the reason why we have to discern between, do we support TPUSA or do we support MAGA blindly? Or do we only support it if they are aligned with the Word of God? And if they're not, then as you're doing on this right now, we have to warn it out or warn them about it. And, again, I have terrible memories of the stuff that I had to deal with as a pastor in the aftermath of Mark Driscoll. But now he's resurfaced and nobody knows that history. And again, to my knowledge, I don't know if he's ever publicly addressed how off he was and how, and maybe he has, but yet still, I think that's in his DNA.
Yeah. And in fact, he also, what year was this? I covered it, was saying that Jesus, when he was here on earth, made mistakes. I'm like, what? Do we have the clip of that, Logan? But I don't know if it's a clip, but it's in my archive. It's in my archive. Let me see if I can bring that up real quick. I know it's something I went back today, my research, and I found it. And I remember doing a whole show on him talking about Jesus making mistakes. And I explained that how confusing that is to Christians and young Christians that he would say something like that. But he did. And it's in my archive. And I found it. And I know it's true because when I had my memory jogged, I'm like, oh, wait, I remember doing shows on that.
Yeah.
In fact,
Brandon,
Logan says he's getting the clip. Logan's getting the clip. Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead. While he gets.
I was going to say why you're looking for that. If I could just add one more point to this confusion. Why is it someone will say, well, guys, why is it so concerning if young people go into a church that teaches, this kind of dominionism, kingdom now theology? Why is that so detrimental? Well, one, you have a false hope because you keep looking for the world to get better, and yet we see it growing darker. And again, you said earlier on the radio something very important. You said there will be a time of revival, especially during the tribulation. During the tribulation, there's going to be an incredible revival that's going to happen, an incredible number of people coming to the Lord. Of course, we have the 144,000 Jewish witnesses. We know there's going to be a remnant saved out of Israel. There are going to be those who will refuse the mark of the beast, who are going to be who are believing upon the Lord Jesus Christ. You're going to lose their head for not bowing to that system. So we know that. But when you believe that everything it's just any minute, everything's going to get better, any minute, and then of course they miss what's going on, they miss prophecy. And Charlie Kirk wrote a letter that I covered earlier on my show today to Prime Minister Netanyahu. And when he wrote that letter, Brannon, he was saying to them, look, in the MAGA movement, many young people are turning on Israel. Well, how much of that is because of replacement theology, because of post-millennialism? So that's why it matters. All of these things are going to direct your biblical worldview or lack of biblical worldview, gives you a false sense of hope in this world versus keeping our eyes focused on the kingdom to come and making sure that our urgency for the gospel and our urgency for discipleship is there. I'm not saying let's vacate the culture and just, get on the escape pods and wait. We must occupy till Christ comes, but with the right perspective. And this is especially the ecumenicalism of it, the interfaith kind of nature of it, makes me really uncomfortable because that's what the faith office is doing in the White House. The faith office is leading an interfaith office where we're going to bring Muslims and Jews and Christians and everybody together.
Including Royer, didn't he do 20 years in jail for working with terrorists?
Yes. The Muslims that they have on the Religious Liberty Commission that are supposed to be fighting for religious liberty are jihadists. Royer spent time in prison for jihad, and they put him on the Religious Liberty Commission. And then Pam Bondi, remember we covered this a couple of weeks ago, when she comes out and says, we are not going to allow hate speech in America. That sent chills up your back and my back, because we know that's dangerous, because who's going to determine what is hate speech? Is it going to be the Muslims? And in Dearborn, Michigan, the Muslim police patrol is already arresting people who dare post things on Facebook against Islam, right there.
This guy is bragging that 50% of his police department is now Muslim. Yeah. Listen to this.
I joined the department. Dearborn's Arab American population was nearly 50%. Yet less than 3% of our police. It's now a department that reflects and embraces the community it serves, with 45% of our officers being Arab American. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I'm proud to serve as your chief of police.
Alhamdulillah. What does that mean? Allah be praised or something?
Alhamdulillah means Allah be praised.
And he's bragging that 50% of his police force is now Islamic. Now, this is going on all over the country, and you want these guys promoting Sharia, going after synagogues, churches, Christians, conservatives, Islamophobes like us. You know, President Trump today, before those military brass, said we've got, you know, basically military soldiers now in our homeland. Yeah. So are you going to deal with the Marxist only, or are you going to deal with the Islamist? I'm concerned he's been compromised to deal with the Islamist because of his family's business deals in what are reported places like Qatar and other countries. You know, what's he doing with Saudi Arabia? What business deals are his family cutting with Saudi Arabia? People might want to research that. So he's right. There are enemies on our soil, the Marxist. But is he only going to concentrate on the Marxist and Antifa? Is he not going to concentrate on the Islamists who are taking over the police departments?
Well, that's going to be the question to see, right? So far, they haven't. And so far, it's all been, you know, some soft talk. But ultimately, they haven't done anything because they're not dealing with the green side of that red-green axis. That is the elephant in the room. That's the greatest long-term threat. Yes, I'm grateful that he dealt with Antifa and he mobilized a joint terrorism task force. Hey, we're going to start looking into Antifa. Okay, good. That's a good start. But now, if you don't go and understand the green, the problem is that love of money. The love of money being the root of all evil, is that influencing them? Because as you said, Jared Kushner, his role, his son-in-law, you know, his sons, his own dealings. I mean, look, he took a $400 million plane from the Qataris. He brags about $3 trillion that came in from these Arab nations, including the United Arab Emirates nation. And remember, he went to the Abraham family house. The Abrahamic family house in Abu Dhabi. He was the first president ever to go there, U.S. president. So this is the deception that is around him when it comes to the green. And if he's being told, and then in Dearborn, Michigan, when he has said publicly that Dearborn, Michigan helped us get over the top in Michigan. It wouldn't have happened in Michigan had it not been for Dearborn. So now he's beholden to the very Muslims in Dearborn that are saying death to America. The very mayor of Dearborn that told a Christian pastor, you're an Islamophobe, and the day you leave, I'm going to throw a parade in the honor of you leaving, and nothing happens to these guys. And now these police departments are being, I call this an Islamic army. They are putting together Islamic armies, Brannon, under the guise of law enforcement, and we're allowing it. And we're allowing these guys to serve. These are enemies.
And yet the president's addressing
with badges and guns.
And yet he's addressing the Marxist, not the Islamist. That's my
concern. Not the Islamist.
Okay.
No.
Here's the clip of Mark Driscoll before we let you go. Watch this clip from our archive from years ago, Mark Driscoll, who's now been put on Turning Point USA yesterday. Watch this.
Okay, ready? What I'm going to tell you now might be a heresy. I'm not sure. We'll see. Okay? I just say that so that if it is, I have an out. Okay, so.
Wow.
What I'm going to say now is, okay, I'll just say it. Okay, Jesus, okay, never sinned. Would you give me that? He never sinned. True? Okay, good. You've been well taught. Okay, I think. Okay, so never sinned. Okay, never violated any command of the Bible. But question. Here goes. Brain explode. Ready? Here go. Is it possible that he made some mistakes? Okay. Meaning, when he was a little kid. Right, if Joseph set him on his bike, Did he need no training wheels, didn't wobble, just rolled around Jerusalem? Okay? When he played Little League, if he played Little League, every time he got up, was it like, walk him. Do not throw the ball to Jesus. He hits a home run every time. Every time he hits a home run. Do you think he ever hit a single? Do you ever hit a double? Do you think ever maybe he would have swung and missed? Do you think if a ball was on the outside corner and it was a strike, maybe one time, hypothetically, possibly, he didn't swing at it? Did he ever make a mistake? Not a sin, mistake. Did he ever have to do something twice because he didn't get it right the first time when he was learning as a little kid how to write his letters? Because it was like, I could do this, Mom. I made the heavens and the earth. Watch, right? I could do cursive too. Or did he have to, okay, this is how you make, okay, I got it right the second time. What do you think? What do you think? It says in Luke that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with men of God. He grew. What that means is he had to learn how to do things. Okay. You're going to need to learn how to do things. One of the ways we learn how to do things is we don't get it right the first time. We fail. So then we learn from it and we figure out how to.
That is immature. That is immature. That is dangerous. And that is word playing. For a child learning to walk who stumbles, that's not a mistake.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
a child crawling instead of walking is not a mistake. Brain development happens when a child crawls. If a child crawls only a short period of time and goes right to walking too early, I've read reports where it hinders brain development. Crawling is a big part of brain development. Is it you can say, well, he had to crawl because he couldn't walk. Therefore, he was not all powerful. I mean, this is stupid, okay?
Yeah.
And this is dangerous. And this is the juvenile theological shenanigans to be an entertainer and a comedian that this guy has no history that I can find of repenting of. And if this is the caliber of people they're going to put in front of young people, Mark Driscoll, we are in for not a spiritual awakening, but massive spiritual confusion. Closing comment?
Well, Brannon, I agree with you 100%. I mean, if you started your message off by saying, I'm about to say something heretical, I don't know, probably a good clue for you to stop.
Yeah.
That would have been a good clue. But it's not just Mark Driscoll. They've had Megyn Kelly on the show. They had Glenn Beck on the show. They had Shapiro on the show, right? So you have a Jew, you have a Mormon, you have a woman in Megyn Kelly who is divorced and foul-mouthed and yes, she's quote conservative, but for a while she had gone over to the other side. So the issue is, if Turning Point USA is supposed to be representing a Christian worldview within the culture, and they're having this ecumenical approach to who they're going to platform on the show, including Catholics, now you have a spiritual deception. I don't know what else to say.
I have no problem talking to people on national security, border issues, whatever. But I cannot sit and do a theological kumbaya.
Right.
That's my problem. That's the spiritual enterprise versus a conversation about national security or borders or economics. That's different.
Yeah.
But if we're going to come together in some kind of kumbaya with Glenn Beck, who is way out there. I mean, I wrote on Glenn Beck's books that he wrote, which is nothing but New Ageism, absolute promotion of New Age mysticism on steroids. And I've got it documented, and I have no record he's changed that, okay? I can sit and talk national security with Glenn, not a problem, but I'm not going to sit and do a spiritual kumbaya with Glenn Beck. I'm not going to discuss
But that's what
spiritual issues and theological, doctrinal, religious solutions.
But that's what they want to do, right? Because they know that this is not just a political movement, right? Now they know this is a spiritual movement. And that's why it's so dangerous. If it was simply a political movement, we could dismiss it and say, well, it's, one of many political movements.
Yes.
But the moment you intermarry the political with the spiritual, because they know that right now the weight of this is because of Charlie's testimony, because of the way he carried himself most of the time, the weight of that is now they got to merge this. They got to capitalize on this, quote, spiritual awakening. And what does the Bible say in the last days, right? There will be a form of godliness, but denying the very power thereof.
Yep.
And that's what I'm concerned about this is, that we're going to see a form of godliness, but through ecumenicalism, interfaithism, multi-faithism, we all, ultimately, let's just find our differences, or let's just put aside our differences and find our commonality. That is what's so dangerous that Jesus warned about in Matthew 24.
And Second John 9 through 11.
Second John.
Have
That's
nothing, what fellowship does righteousness have with unrighteousness, light with darkness? The things of God with the things of Baal, meaning Satan. And he says, interesting enough, the Lord God, through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit unto the writer of Second John and the rest of the Bible, but Second John is what we're discussing, says, if you don't mix with false teaching, if you don't enter into spiritual enterprises, not saying you can't talk national security, borders, have a hamburger, be friends with non-Christians. Not saying that. If you seek to try to merge the things of God with the things of Satan or that of false doctrines, if you do not do this, it says in the text, I will welcome you. And that means in the original, I will have favor on you. I will have favor on you. I will welcome you. I will bless you. What's the opposite of all that? God's judgment. So if people are saying, well, we want a spiritual revival, well, what for? So God will bless our country. I want spiritual revival, whether God blesses the country or not. The biggest spiritual revival of all mankind is going to happen during the tribulation when the Antichrist is ruling. It has nothing to do with God blessing the countries. It has to do with a spiritual revival. I want a spiritual revival because I'm concerned about people's eternal souls.
Amen.
Having converted people living in our country, that's just a icing on the cake. But we don't want spiritual revival for materialistic, political, economic reasons. We want spiritual revival because we're concerned about the souls of men and women and boys and girls. Closing comment?
You're absolutely correct. The problem is the Kingdom Now people want exactly what you just said they shouldn't get. The Kingdom Now people in the church want that spiritual revival.
Because they believe that you have to have that to have the kingdom set, the culture set, the temperature set for Jesus to return. And I have quotes by some of them saying that Jesus is literally sitting in heaven next to the Father, waiting for us to get it together down here so he can come back. So once we have enough Christians ruling and reigning and taking over the White House and taking over the world, then the Lord can come back. That's humanistic thinking. It's not in the Bible. The Bible says in Daniel 2, God brings his kingdom. We don't build it in this world. We are involved in evangelism, the great disciple, the great commission, evangelism and discipleship. But that's right. They are pushing a spirituality because they think it produces the right kind of person to set the right kind of environment so we can then reclaim the world for Christ. Well, that's a false motive for spiritual revival. It's based on a lie. So why would you be shocked that the spiritual revival is a lie?
Exactly. And ultimately, the spiritual revival has no true fruit because it's not based in the regeneration by the power of the Holy Spirit when someone is actually saved. Because again, and this is not to say, Brand, I know we're over time. This is not to say a political move. I remember when I ran for governor back in 2010 to 2012, there were people who through the campaign started coming to our church. And then through that, the gospel was shared with them. They believed upon the name of the Lord. They were saved. They were baptized. They've grown. They've been disciples of Christ ever since. But I lost the campaign. The campaign was just a vehicle. It wasn't about God saving Washington State, where I used to live. It was about bringing these souls into the kingdom. So ultimately, God used that as a vehicle. That's fine. But the moment you see the vehicle as saving the nation, if that's the vehicle, and because that proves that we're in Kingdom Now theology, now you've presented a false gospel. And people are being saved. Even if they are being saved, they're being saved on a political, cultural gospel rather than on the true regeneration gospel that is about your eternity and knowing that there's no promise of peace on earth, right? There's no promise anywhere that there's peace on earth.
Well, let's pray that this appearance of Mark Driscoll on Turning Point USA is corrected, and we do not find that they go down the road with these kind of people, or people that are pushing the New Apostolic Reformation or the Word of Faith heresies. And you're saying, I don't know what you mean by this Word of Faith heresies. Well, folks, we have full shows on it and books on it. And we're glad to make those available to you in our vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Put it in, you'll find plenty about it. And I'm sure a lot of people want to learn about it. But we need to pray for wisdom, discernment, that they don't get off track with guys like that, Mark Driscoll tonight and others.
Amen.
TILministry.com, TILministry.com. As always, Shahram, thanks for being with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. God bless you guys.
You too, my friend. We'll be right back after this break. We have a big announcement, folks, something we've been waiting on for several months, and it's now here. It's called Bella Melt. You were on it for just 1 week when you lost 3 pounds. So in the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. It's a sugar-free, fast melt caramel. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where you make, we've talked about it before, this is where you produce energy in your cells. It actually tells those mitochondria to burn fat for fuel. We're noticing other people losing up to 7 pounds in the first week. 4 pounds has been about the average. As you lose weight and as you take these Bella Melts, it's going to help lower that blood sugar in your body as well.
All the information is there. MelissaHouseBG.com, MelissaHouseBG.com. Just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 fast action. Joining me now is David Pyne. Let's do a check on where things are going, but particularly let's talk about the odd address today by President Trump to the room full of generals and admirals. I said on the radio today, I was very troubled by it because I don't think this is the way a president should be talking to generals and admirals. He's the commander in chief. He wants to talk like this to the American people, fine. If he wants to give his ideas, fine. Do you think Truman would have talked like this? Eisenhower? Do you think Ronald Reagan would have talked to generals like this? And you say, well, Brannon, why does it bother you? Because we cannot talk about the left politicizing the military, and then we turn around and do the same thing. When you walk in there as the commander in chief, he is in a different role, a very important constitutional role, and he needs to respect his audience. These are guys that cannot be involved in politics. Now, if they are involved in politics, they need to be fired. And I think some of them have been. But we cannot say, oh, politics on the left is a problem, but politics on the right is not. Now, the Constitution is not politics. It's the law of the land. That's different. That's the law. That's our organic founding document, one of many. But what I saw today was very troubling to me because I'm thinking this is not respecting the guys sitting there. Many of them have got to be extremely uncomfortable because they know what military code is. And then for 71 minutes, I had to count. He used the word I. He used the word I 89 times in that 71 minutes. He got off script. And I felt sorry for the men in the audience, and I felt sorry for him because it was like the uncle that comes to Thanksgiving that won't be quiet and goes off on a rabbit trail and dominates the whole dinner. And you're like, is he ever going to, get with the program and read the room? And people who have been longtime supporters of President Trump were texting me and emailing saying this is so cringy. Now, I understand the MAGA cult people won't get this, but I'm not talking to the MAGA cult. I'm talking to MAGA supporters, people who want to make America great again. And you and I can be discerning and want to make America great again and agree with the America First principles of which many of us believed in long before Donald Trump even believed in. I'm going to profess them publicly. But I'm not going to be a cult member. When I see something I agree with, I say it. When I see something I disagree with, I say it. And I didn't agree with what I saw today. I didn't agree with the tone or the tenor and the things that were being said. I don't think you stand up there and trash the last president or the president before that or Barack Obama or Biden. Not because there aren't plenty of negative things you can say. It's not the time and the place. This is not how we build back the military. This is not how we have respect for the office of the presidency, our military leaders. It wasn't right. And my spirit was grieved and knew this is not appropriate. Am I talking about the entire speech? No. I'm talking about the rabbit trail, the the political talk. This is not a MAGA rally. He's the commander-in-chief. I wonder how David felt. I don't know, because David and I have not discussed it. David Pyne joins me now. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Brad. Thanks for having me on.
You're former military, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm a former U.S. Army headquarters staff officer and combat arms officer.
Did you watch that speech today?
So I only caught part of it. I haven't had time to watch the whole thing. It was quite lengthy.
71 minutes.
Yeah. So I probably watched the first half or so. So I read the highlights. But I agree with a lot of what you said. Maybe not for the same reasons. I mean, it did seem like a pep rally, and that's not really, where you should be having it, because we want an apolitical, military officer corps, especially at the senior level with the generals. Certainly, it was very political under Biden, and Biden appointed a lot of his, DEI proponents to lead the military, and they're still there. Trump, I think, Hegseth and Trump will let go, up to 21, senior 3 and 4 star generals. But there's a lot more that need to be replaced. And that's become fairly typical. I think Obama did the same thing in replacing a lot of Bush generals. So I don't have a problem with that. He was pretty brash about it. He joked that anyone who wanted to could walk out, but you'll lose your stars.
In fact, let me play that clip. That's funny you brought that up.
Stars right off your uniform.
Yeah, we haven't rehearsed this, and I have that clip. Yeah, you didn't know I had that clip ready to go, but you brought it up, and I have it. Here it is.
Thank you very much, Pete. Great job you're doing, too. Fantastic job. I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very... Oh, don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that. You know what? Just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank. There goes your future. But you just feel nice and loose, okay? Because we're all on the same team. And I was told that, sir, you won't hear a murmur in the room. I said, we got to loosen these guys up a little bit. So you just have a good time. But
okay, so he forgot. I guess he didn't notice they were standing, so someone told him to sit down. I found that interesting. Pete Hegseth said, everybody, you may be seated. He forgot to do that. I wonder, who are they all watching, by the way, to know to sit down? How did they know to all sit down at one time? Because it wasn't the president saying it. How did they know to sit down? I'm just curious. Do you have any idea?
Well, I'm sure Hegseth was sitting in the corner, or maybe the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane. But that's a good question. Is there some kind of military protocol, chief sitting up there, maybe a senior enlisted, at the top level, command sergeant major?
So when the chairman of Joint Chiefs sat down, then they all sat down too, then probably.
I would assume so, but I haven't been able to verify that.
I wonder if they had not done that, when they just stood for the whole speech.
Well, I mean, they're military officers, and they stand for their commander in chief. That would have been a little awkward to have them stand during the entire speech.
71 minutes, some of them start passing out. Like, wow, it's a tough crowd.
Yeah, especially when they're our age, or maybe even a little older. I mean, there's some younger ones, 1 or 2 stars, I guess. But again, I haven't seen all of Trump's speech. I was actually more troubled with Hegseth's speech.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Secretary of War Hegseth, he talked a lot about of course the warrior ethos, esprit de corps, getting rid of all of our fat generals and admirals. Thought that was entertaining. Making sure that women can only serve if they're triathletes essentially and can meet the highest male standards. I don't have as much of a problem with that. I mean, that seems reasonable for special forces, Rangers, combat roles, because the requirements are pretty high. Certainly of infantry, maybe not so much of armor, where you're not carrying a 90-pound rucksack on 10-mile force marches. But he talked a lot about that we need to be ready to fight wars, not just wars that we're forced into, but wars we choose to fight, implying that we have some more offensive wars in our future. We've already fought 2 offensive wars that Trump started in Yemen first, and then in Iran. And you and I have been talking about Trump and Netanyahu are likely to have another go at Iran, perhaps even before the year's over. So that may be coming up. We know that there's been a lot of scuttlebutt about Trump bombing Venezuela, perhaps a prelude to sending the Marines to take the Venezuelan capital of Caracas and install a U.S. puppet there. And that's something I'd welcome a lot more than fighting wars halfway across the globe, and certainly in Ukraine, Taiwan, Iran, the Middle East. Of course, the latest news is that Trump has appointed himself to be the de facto leader of Gaza under this new peace agreement. This is a little bit off topic, but as of yesterday, when he met with Netanyahu, that he would be the leader of this peace council and essentially have be the chairman and perhaps indefinite governing partner in there, perhaps even after he leaves office. But I was most troubled by the way Hegseth talked about, we don't need to really do national defense anymore because, that's what we used to do. And now we're on offense all the time. We're going to win wars, not just wars we're forced into, in other words, being attacked or, having to defend against, but the ones that we start ourselves. And that's just not what we signed up for when we voted for Trump. We voted for Trump. He was supposed to be a peace president. He was supposed to defend America. And ironically, that's what the official Hegseth national defense strategy does. Of course, it's been on his desk, rumored since late June. So he might be changing it radically to support his, the vision of the military that he stated today. But, I'm hoping that that strategy is fully implemented, because if it is fully implemented, it would mean major troop withdrawals from Europe and the Middle East minimally, and even perhaps at least a freeze on deployment of forces in the East Asia and the Western Pacific, so that we can focus on homeland defense in terms of defense against super EMP attack. Finally starting to get those 100,000 PLA troops out of our country, which is, the equivalent of 2 group armies of eight PLA divisions. That's a huge threat. And, if we want to, if we want to conquer Greenland, if we want to, retake the Panama Canal and, invade Venezuela, I mean, that's a lot more reasonable and a lot more related to our vital national security interests than getting into all these other wars, and perhaps in Ukraine and Taiwan.
Well, here's one line that I found a little interesting today. President Trump said to the generals and admirals, here we go.
And General Kane, and all of the people that I've met that have been lifted up in rank. And we got many of them out of here, too, I'll be honest with you. Didn't like doing it, but we got many of you out of here because we weren't satisfied. We know everything about everybody.
We know everything. We weren't satisfied with some of you, got rid of them, which is fine. I mean, they're a lot more woke DEI. I'm glad they're gone. But I just thought that's an interesting line. We know everything. We know everything about you. Okay, everybody is on notice. Wow.
Yeah, Biden had political officers. He had, old Soviet-style Zampolets where they were everyone's social media was monitored, and anyone who was right-wing or Trump supporters, was at danger of being, kicked out of the military. Maybe Trump's going to start that as well. I don't support that, but certainly at the top, I strongly support Hex's idea of firing, woke generals and Biden generals,
Yes,
certainly
yes.
from the upper ranks. He set a goal of 20% cuts at the four-star rank, and then 10% overall for the 80 generals and admirals we have. So that would be, or 800 rather. So it would be 80 generals that would be fired. Haven't seen it happen yet, but still holding out hope.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's the latest on NATO before we let you go? Where are we at with this? Because he called out Putin in this speech today, too. Where are we at with this, what I think is already World War III that started, but where are we at with NATO and this evolving war?
Well, it's interesting, that he pointed out that, the nuclear threat. He talked about how he threatened Russia with, nuclear attack by deploying a couple of Ohio ballistic missile submarines close to Russian territory. I mean, we have those deployed in the Atlantic and Pacific at all times. So I don't think that. I don't think he really did anything in terms of redeploying any of our submarines, but he claims he did. But it's the very threats that he's making. He's threatening not only nuclear attack, he's threatening to give Tomahawk land attack missiles to Ukraine. We don't even have any to give. I mean, he's making all these threats that are the Russians have to understand or bluff and bluster. But it'd be more dangerous if they didn't, if they thought that he was serious, because a Tomahawk missile launched from Ukraine could range anywhere in European Russia all the way to the Ural Mountains. Putin has his nuclear command bunkers situated in the Ural Mountains, and those can't be penetrated by U.S. nuclear weapons because we don't have any of sufficient yield to do so. But the very idea that we could give offensive intelligence to Ukraine and they could target Russian leadership or nuclear triad forces anywhere in European Russia is pretty disconcerting, and it's completely unnecessary. It's completely inconsistent with Trump's goal of wanting to end the war in Ukraine that he pledged to do 51 different times during his presidential campaign. So in terms of NATO, we've had these Russian drone incursions. Those aren't attacks. I mean, those are reconnaissance unarmed drones that entered Polish airspace, 19 of them. One entered into Romanian airspace. Then there was Russian reconnaissance aircraft that buzzed, I guess, 3 of them that buzzed a German frigate in the Baltic. Not a big deal. I mean, those are not huge deals. I think we had a Russian bomber that came within almost 200 miles of Alaska. That's pretty routine, unfortunately. I mean, that just happens on a pretty frequent basis. And it's just because tensions are so high that thanks to Trump's decision to escalate Biden's war in Ukraine, that these are even issues. Otherwise, we see it as kind of routine Cold War tactics.
Yep. In fact, here he is talking about the submarines. Listen to this.
Threatened by Russia recently, and I sent a submarine, nuclear submarine, the most lethal weapon ever made. Number one, you can't detect it. There's no way. We're 25 years ahead of Russia and China in submarines. Russia's actually second in submarines. China's.
Okay, can I stop there? Because I'm not sure that's true. Because I remember reporting on the air that our government could not track a Russian sub and find it for several weeks. I went and looked it up. Back in 2018, there was reportedly a Russian submarine, the ASH, A-S-H submarines, they're stealth, and that for a few weeks, they couldn't find it. For several weeks, our military couldn't find it. So I'm not buying. I know his job as commander-in-chief is to tell everybody how great and powerful we're the best military. But Dr. Peter Vincent Pry sat at this desk, as you know, talking about all the 5th and 6th generation technology that Russia and China have. We have generals with 4 stars on their shoulder testifying to Congress saying, we don't have an answer to that yet, but we're working on it. So I would caution the American people into buying propaganda that lets you believe that we are bigger and better than Russia and China and they wouldn't dare mess with us. Don't buy that lie. He has no choice to say it, I guess, because he's the commander in chief, but it's not true. Am I right, David?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, Trump unfortunately made a number of misleading statements about Russia's nuclear capabilities and our own nuclear capabilities, starting with what you mentioned about, saying we're 25 years ahead of Russia in submarine technology. I mean, they have, as you mentioned, they have Yasin and Yasin-M nuclear cruise missile submarines that can launch Zircon hypersonic missiles that could take out DC in 5 minutes from a distance of 200 miles. And we can't even detect those. The U.S. Navy doesn't have the ability to detect them because they use either non-magnetic or low magnetic hulls. So we can't get a radar, a sonar signature on those submarines. So, we have a huge gap in terms of our submarine detection capabilities, especially in the capital region, in the Atlantic. In fact, I shared with you, I think a couple of years ago that, former Assistant Secretary of Defense Frank Gaffney informed me and some other folks on a call that he was told in 2021 that a Russian submarine entered Chesapeake Bay, which is, again, right by Washington, D.C., and had to be chased out of the bay by U.S. Missile frigates and patrol craft. So that Chesapeake Bay is 44 feet deep. So certainly we can detect that, but we can't detect Yasin submarines that are deep underwater that can fire take out DC and potentially all 3 nuclear footballs at the same time, leaving us without launch control of our nuclear arsenal for a matter of days, according to Colonel Rob Maness. Now, Trump also stated that the U.S. has the biggest, the best, the most powerful nuclear arsenal on the planet. Everyone knows that's false. He also stated that he rebuilt our nuclear arsenal. I went back and looked up when he first said that. He was briefed on the size of our nuclear arsenal on July 20th, 2017, about 6 months after he came to office. And at that time, he was so aghast at how our nuclear arsenal had shrunk from 32,000 warheads to just 2,285 operational warheads today. He said he wanted to increase the size of our nuclear arsenal by 10 times. And then, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson called him a moron. And that was reported in October of that year. And he so subsequently walked that back. But it was just 2 weeks after that meeting that he claimed that he'd massively increased the size of our nuclear arsenal, when in fact he decreased it during his presidency by 11 ICBMs under previous Obama New START treaty implementation plans. So unfortunately, Trump does like to exaggerate. He kind of goes off the rails. He likes to pretend that the U.S. is the biggest bully in the block, as Colin Powell said that we wanted to be during the Iraq War, to intimidate everyone else, to kind of be the unipolar power, superpower, and that's just not the case anymore. Russia and China overmatch us individually in terms of nuclear and conventional military power. Russia has more active duty forces than the U.S. today, thanks to our decision to go to wage this proxy war with them over Ukraine's border status. So we just live in a very different world, and it would be really helpful if President Trump were a lot more realistic about the limits of U.S. military power, instead of going off about how we can invade everyone we want and get away with it.
Does he even know the truth? Has he been told things that aren't true? Is it possible he's been told things aren't true? He believes these things, which is how the neocons get him to go out there and poke a stick in Putin's eye, and the Iranians and North Korea and the rest of these characters, some of them who are in our hemisphere, I mean, I remember one of the commanders for Southcom or whatever it was, he was warning a panel of Congress, China's in our backyard. They're in our backyard, okay? Are there missiles? Does Iran have missiles in Venezuela? There are reasons to believe they have. We've been talking about it since 2010. But they certainly have terrorists here. At one time, they had 5,000 man-pads, shoulder-launched rockets that were missing. And they went through hyperinflation over there, and literally the middle class is eating out of dumpsters. We have videos of it. Don't you think some of those things are being sold off in the black market by the military not being paid? Does he know these things? Does the commander-in-chief even know what I just said about 5,000 man-pads floating around? Or has he been told things by the neocons around him, and therefore he believes it, and he goes out and says the things he does because he thinks I have the ability to back it up when he doesn't? Are they lying to him, you think, and playing him?
Yeah, they absolutely are. I wrote an article about that. I think it was just a week after he announced, Rubio and Ratcliffe and some of the other bad actors to be on his cabinet. As Secretary of State, CIA Director, of course, Keith Kellogg as Special Envoy to Ukraine, and others that have provided him with misinformation that have caused him to want to keep fighting the war in Ukraine, to bomb Iran. Both of those were against U.S. interests, put us at great risk in terms of the U.S. homeland being attacked catastrophically, most likely by a massive cyber attack and counter space attack. In terms of Venezuela, I mean, Venezuela's military capabilities are pretty limited, but it is very possible, as you mentioned, that both Cuba and Venezuela could have nuclear missiles already in place.
Or Iran.
Or something of that nature. And Iran certainly absolutely has nuclear missiles. They may not be able to range the U.S. with a nuclear missile, but they can range the U.S. with a super EMP satellite.
Could they have put some in Iran, as has been talked about? Because they've had flights coming out of Iran into Venezuela for years.
Yeah, Iran could certainly have moved MRBMs to Venezuela. It would take more than, I think, an MRBM to they could probably range Florida with an MRBM, but more likely they would have either Club K supersonic missiles that could be fired from a ship, or else any other Iranian MRBM. All of their missiles are on transporter erectors. They're mobile missiles. The only mobile missile I'm aware of that we have in our arsenal is the Typhoon missile erector system that can fire TLAM missiles, Tomahawk missiles that are ground launched, as well as modified SM-6, missiles which are fired from U.S. Navy ships. So our enemies have lots of mobile missiles. All of Iran's missiles are mobile, but they have some of their best missiles. Their MRBMs and IRBMs are in underground, nuclear silos, missile silos that we can't really touch from the air. So, Iran is a much greater threat than it's been presented to be, and we're just lucky that Trump and Iran came to an agreement to not escalate any higher than they did with the nuclear sites that were hit by the U.S. and had moderate damage.
Well, very interesting days, that's for sure. But we have to have clear minds, and we have to call it the way we see it. And that doesn't mean I don't support President Trump in a lot of ways and what he's doing. But where I don't agree, or where I think it's troublesome or not good for the ability to be consistent, we don't want to see the left politicize the military. We don't see the right do it. And I want the president to be respected by his generals and commanders. And I have to think there was a group of them out there watching this day to day going, this is really weird. And when he says things that aren't true militarily, there are guys sitting in that room that know far more about the facts and knew for a fact the commander-in-chief was standing there revealing to all of the rest of the commanders, our generals and admirals, his extreme ignorance on reality. That's not good for us as Americans. Am I right?
Yeah, you're totally right. We need presidents that are well informed, and when they're fed misinformation, when President Trump's fed misinformation, that hurts U.S. national security. It causes him to make forced errors that he otherwise could avert. And that's why, the old axiom, personnel is policy, is so true. When he appoints neocons to lead U.S. foreign policy and national security policy, whether it's Marco Rubio or Mike Waltz, then Marco Rubio now controls both the Department of State and the National Security Council. He's dual-hatted like Henry Kissinger. And that would be a good thing if it was someone like J.D. Vance or maybe even Pete Hegseth, someone who's, might say dumb things like Hegseth sometimes do, but actually doesn't want us to get involved with Russia and Ukraine in terms of a war, doesn't want us to go to war with Iran, thinks that maybe, while he talks about fighting new wars, maybe it's a little gun shy with actually starting with countries that can shoot back at us, with nuclear super EMP weapons. Venezuela, of course, likely doesn't have that, although they could, as we discussed, they could have, Iranian, Russian, or Chinese nuclear missiles that could be deployed there. I tend to think they likely don't have that, but certainly it's possible.
dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com. As always, David, thank you for your national security briefings you bring to us.
Thanks, Brannon. Always a pleasure.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed. Joining me now is Anni Cyrus giving us an update on where we are with the acceptance of the 20-point peace plan by Hamas. Anni, our numbers last night were huge. Logan said they were as big as the night that we reported on the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and that they held for nearly 2 hours that they held. Clearly last night, people were interested in what we're saying. We are getting emails and texts, people thanking us. I think some people are very aware of what's happening, and we're not getting many negative emails at all. The people that want to be cult members, they can be that. But the bulk of our audience wants to be discerning and wise and pursue truth. And last night was a real test to see what was going to happen. Because I don't care either way. I mean, I do care because I want people to respond the right way, but I don't care if we get negative, because my commitment is to do this for the right reason. I've been doing this 36 years. And I have a history of being one of these guys that when someone tells me I can't talk about something, it makes me want to talk about it more. So if they want me to double down the MAGA cult followers versus the MAGA discerning followers, see, there's a difference. Make America great again, discerning followers like you, me, and the audience. And then the few that want to be MAGA cult members, the more they email me negative, the more I'm doubling down, tripling down. But we only got 3 negative emails out of huge numbers last night, historically high numbers. I think we're seeing many, many people awaken to the fact that we have a serious problem in this second term, 9 months in. Your thoughts before we move on to Hamas?
I would say there's a huge number of your audience, Brannon. The reason I say that, and yes, I also received some very kind messages from your audience through my social media, email, those who had my cell phone number, a huge number of positive feedback. But the reason I say your audience, And that's credit to you and them for them to have the open mind to learn, for you to dabbling down and reporting facts. But the reason I narrowed down to just your audience is you should check out my Facebook. The level of attack, I mean, literally attack verbally, accusations on my page tells a different story. I don't think the huge number we need as a nation is happening, because there are other people out there who are putting out lies, half-truth, cover-ups, majority of them who identify as conservatives, as Christians. You know, they twist yesterday's 21-point deal. I read headlines on some of the unbelievable, active, high names of anti-Sharia movement praising this 21-point deal, Brannon. And so do their followers. And I'm talking some of the names that you already know them, your audience probably know them. They're with like millions of followers and subscribers. They were praising this 21-point deal. They weren't calling it what it was.
Well,
so unfortunately, we need more of you.
Well, let's keep waking the people up. I dealt with this today on radio, but I want to bring it up. Point 18, an interfaith, this is one of the points for this plan. An interfaith dialogue process will be established based on the values of tolerance and peaceful coexistence to try and change mindsets and narratives of Palestinians and Israelis by emphasizing the benefits that can be derived from peace. Okay, why do we need an interfaith dialogue to do that? If the issues stand on their own, economically, politically, national security-wise, human rights-wise, whatever they might be, then why can't they stand on their own? Why do we have to have an interfaith dialogue? You know that 2017 is when I became all about fighting interfaith dialogue, when Yasser Qadi, who I think is a Jew-hating, Holocaust-denying, Hitler-defending, jihadi-preaching imam, who had a mosque down the road, now went to Plano, Texas, to build, I guess, this 402-acre compound. In 2017, I became very vocal about him having interfaith dialogue with John MacArthur and Phil Johnson of Grace to You's buddy, James White. And we got criticized for pointing it out. So since 2017, interfaith dialogue has been on my radar. And Syed Khatib, one of the leading scholars from Muslim Brotherhood, said that interfaith dialogue is a one-way street to bring the non-Muslim to their side, not the other way around. So is this going to be a process to convert Jews to Islam? Number one. Number two, is it laying the foundation for really what you see, what is it, in Abu Dhabi, where President Trump went, where you have the synagogue, the mosque, and the church, this interfaith dialogue? I mean, to me, this seems to be laying the foundation for what Antichrist is going to come and do and then confirm a peace treaty. Comment on all that, please.
I would say, yes, 100% agreed with what you're saying. Now, why do they need okay, let me pull a Anni Cyrus here for a minute. Why do they need any of those 20 points? They don't. They shouldn't be offered. But the interfaith is pushed in there because you're familiar with this hadith. Many of your audience are. But Sahih al-Bukhari 29:26 says that the hour will not arrive until Muslims fight the Jews, and the stones will say, "Oh, you Muslim, there's a Jew hiding behind me. Come and kill it." When when that is your order by your Allah, of course there's a need for interfaith dialogue, because you either need to convert these Jews or you have to fight them and kill them all. The meaning, we need to keep something in mind, Brannon. When we use English terminology for certain things, we need to keep in mind in Islamic cult, the meaning of words are very different. We say interfaith dialogue to coexist peacefully. To them, interfaith dialogue is one of the chapters of Taqiyya, to further the cause of Allah, where you allow such a thing as peaceful coexistence to be opened up so you can sit there and either cherry pick and manipulate verses of the Quran to feed someone lies and convert them, or you try it and when it failed, give them a chance to be a dhimmi in case of a Jew, faster turn into convert or die. So the meaning behind a lot of these words are different. There is, yesterday on your show, I said, you asked me if I think the new Gaza is going to be built this way or that way. I said no, because the new Gaza will not be built because Hamas is not going to agree to these points.
And what's the latest?
And the latest is they are not going to agree to these points. And the number one rejection was exactly what I called yesterday, which was disarming Hamas. They have pointed out 3 points that they don't want to work with. Number one is disarming. And then the second thing, they are actually opposing the transitional government that Trump bragged about, that it wasn't his idea and he's a very busy man, but everybody wants him to be the leader of the transitional government, cooperating with his good friend and a good man, Tony Blair. They're opposing that as well. They're calling it another or a new occupation, which this time, for once, they are right. It is none of United States of America or United Kingdom or France or Sweden or Italy or any of those countries' business to govern Gaza border. It is solely the Israeli people's business and nobody else's. So they're rejecting those two right off the bat. They have said that they are ready to continue the war unless the 4 items, these 2 were announced, but they want 4 items removed, not renegotiated, completely removed from the 20 plans, and they will reconsider it. Now, President Trump also comes out and says, I only gave them 3 or 4 days to make their decisions. President Trump, they already made their decision. Why are you manipulating American people? Why? If I know they rejected it, Brannon, don't you think President Trump know they rejected it?
I would hope so, but sometimes he doesn't know things we know. The press ask him questions, and he's like, oh, I didn't know that. And we're going,
yeah, but this one is his deal. This is his everlasting peace.
He apparently lives in a bubble.
I strongly believe this is another his diplomatic move. He's not telling people that they immediately rejected the offer because he wants to go back and renegotiate some of the parts and try to salvage this deal. He knows they rejected it because guess what? The negotiator from Hamas contacted the Qatar negotiations on behalf of U.S., and the Qatar negotiator must have contacted President. I know some of my information come to me a couple of hours before most people, or even sometimes a couple of hours before White House, but it has been 8.5 hours since, 8.5 hours since Hamas announced the rejection. So for President Trump to still say they have 3 to 4 days to decide, I think it's another layer of lie. And it is a lie. As Christians, we're not supposed to say white lies are okay or call lies diplomacy. It's a lie. He's lying to public until he can figure out a way to get this deal done. Because again, priority is for him to make these deals. When he was giving his speech this morning to top leaders of our military, he already said, possibly I did number 8, which is the longest and worst of all wars that I ended. He's already putting the word out there on his speeches.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to give up, not because he cares for Jews, not because he cares for Americans, not because he cares for Palestinians, quote unquote. He cares for this deal because that's going to be number 8. That's going to give him the credit of everlasting peace in the Middle East. But as of right now, Hamas has rejected it. Like I said last night, they will reject.
Well, and then I want to go to number 9 of the plan. Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public services and municipalities for the people in Gaza. Technocratic. So
let me ask you this: how many technocratic?
Just further proof of what I predicted yesterday on radio before I saw this plan, that they were going to use digital technocracy, which is why they want Tony Blair involved. And they're going to use this to control Gaza. And let me tell you something. If you can do this technocratic system in Gaza and bring peace, stability, deal with the extremists, whatever you want to call them, terrorists, extremists, right, left, whatever. This will be the model for the world. We were able to bring peace and stability to the most controversial conflict in modern history through this technology. Imagine what we can do, Americans, with Chicago, Portland, name the city. I will not be shocked if at some point they're able to get this done over there and use it as a test case for saying, if we can bring peace there, we can bring peace anywhere with this new system. Annie?
I would 100% agree with you, but I would also say they picked the very wrong place to try to do this. They would have had a better chance to, let's say, talk to Abu Dhabi governor and say, we're going to buy part of your city and turn it into that.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been a better chance. That again, this what Trump, at this point, I would say even Netanyahu, last night I was asked, how come you're not calling out Netanyahu? There you go. I am. Last night topic was about America, not about Bibi. I am extremely disappointed in him for even agreeing to these points. And I go back to what you've been repeatedly saying, that for anyone out there who walks around and say Netanyahu runs Trump and Israel run Trump's, come on, look at these points and how they twisted Bibi's hand, knowing he's winning the war. His troops are halfway through Gaza already. Mm-hmm. Why would he agree to it? That comes back to, unfortunately, again, he's another politician who has somehow managed to constantly be reelected through chaos. So there you have it. For those of you who criticize me for not calling him out for his mistake. But all of them, their misunderstanding of situation at Gaza is, again, this isn't Hamas. This isn't Hezbollah. This isn't Houthis or IRGC. This is Islam. This is Islam that's fighting them there. They won't be able to achieve what they think they want to achieve. Yes, if they achieve it, you're very correct. But I extremely highly doubt they'd be able to even start the first step of rebuilding Gaza into their 50-minute city, let alone finishing it. And again, they're not dealing with Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi or Qatar or Kuwait, meaning players who fund terrorism and are more lenient towards playing diplomacy. They're dealing with the actual soldiers of Allah. They call themselves Hezbollah. Those are soldiers of Allah. Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. They literally guard the Islamic revolutionaries. There is no price for these people to accept your offers. They are soldiers. They take orders, and they take orders from Sahih al-Bukhari. They take orders from Quran through muftis and supreme leaders.
All right, well, keep us posted, Annie. It sounds like the deal right now is not going to happen, but I'm sure they're going to renegotiate and keep going, right?
That's the thing. This 20 points will not happen. They're going to keep buying again. Brannon, it's been 9 months, almost 10 months since Trump came to office. Do we have the hostages?
Nope.
Do we have a permanent ceasefire?
Nope.
This is what I'm hoping people will start seeing. What you're seeing is not somebody trying to put an end to this issue. No, this is all buying time and buying more time so they can have more check marks next to their name in the history book of attempting and trying. These momentarily 1 minute, 5 minute, 10-minute celebrations are just shiny objects. People need to see through them.
And they're distracting us from a lot of other things going on.
Yes, I don't know how much time I have, but I want to say something, and I know your audience will understand where I'm coming from. We know for a fact, Brannon, you have had experts such as Todd Bensman on your show and Dave Gobbets on your show, you know for a fact they are active IRGC, meaning Iranians were tied to IRGC inside United States of America. And Trump administration have literally said Iran is still the danger. They're funding terrorism. They have their sleeper cells in America, yada, yada, yada. But somehow Trump administration decide to make another deal, separate deal, different deal with Islamic Republic of Iran's mullahs, the regime. This is going completely unnoticed. I will give credit to Fox News for actually reporting on it. We made a deal with Tehran that up to 400 Iranians will be deported from U.S. through Qatar, names repeating themselves, into Tehran. Up to 400 Iranians will be deported under the immigration law and through ICE arrests. The first 120 of them were already shipped out yesterday. They are already in Qatar being transitioned by Qatar government, meaning confirm identity, and then put in next plane to go to Tehran. Let me ask you a question, Brannon. Why would a Trump administration suddenly come to an agreement with the mullahs that they call all sort of names, and they say they are the most dangerous in the Middle East and they should be taken out, and we don't want to do diplomacy with them? Why would they agree with this regime to hand them 400 Iranians? And out of those 400 Iranians that are going to be deported, and the 120 that were deported yesterday, not a single one of them was arrested Iranian in our presence who spied for Iran's regime or had ties to IRGC.
In other words, they were Iranians like you or Shahram?
Some of them were, yes. Some were Christians. Let me say that very clear without an accent, if possible. They deported Iranian Christians to Islamic Republic of Iran.
They'll be killed once they land, imprisoned and then killed.
Well, the administration has apparently said that we have their words that these people will be safe. And again, let me ask you, since when Trump administration take mullahs' words for it? We have one, I can confirm myself that one of the 120 loaded in the plane yesterday and sent, who's in Qatar now, on their way to Iran, was an Iranian ex-Muslim girl here with a student visa. Her visa was revoked. So, yes, they're putting an umbrella that these deported people, 120, were majority. If you read even the government sentence, the ICE sentences are majority illegals. Brannon, not all of them, majority illegals. Now, those of majority illegals, majority of them, yes, they entered the country illegally. However, they actually went for asylum, got the court date, show up for their court, and did all the things they had to do. They just didn't have the final approval yet. And ICE decided to pull their cases from courts and revoke their asylum. Second, some of those illegals were here with work visa, and ICE revoked their visa because the work visa situations have changed now. But they didn't come yesterday. One of them, I know this person, here for 8 years through work visa, worked, paid taxes, had not even a traffic ticket. And Brannon, when I posted that on my Facebook this morning, I had people cheering, saying, excellent, this is what I voted for.
Without knowing the fact that some of them...
Oh, no, they knew the fact. The facts were in the post. I specifically said not all of them were illegals, and none of them had ties to Islamic regime. Their visas were revoked. And I had supporters of mine cheering this move. And this is what happens when blind support is on the table. People so badly want number of deportation, they're not noticing that ICE is coming up with loopholes to revoke visas of innocent, decent people to just meet the number. I will not let this go. You know, Brannon, I'm digging. I want to know why 400 who's on that list, and why did Trump administration shake hands with the mullahs to agree to ship 400 Iranians to Iran?
Did any of them include the pastor that we...
He is still in detention center. Thankfully, he has not been actually loaded to the plane yet. However, since they're loading him within the next week or two, there's a very good chance he will be loaded on one of those planes as well.
That we interviewed Amir about.
Yes. Again, you know I am against illegals. I am. But this was supposed to be picking up, wrapping up, and deporting criminals first. Not a single convicted or fired or under monitor of Iranian spies in America have been deported yet. But 120 Iranians, again, yes, some of them came in illegally. I will not refuse to acknowledge that. However, why did they suddenly become priority of deportation after a deal made with Tehran?
Annie, stay on it, will you? Very troubling.
You know, I mean, if you don't mind me saying this on air, I asked you to check in on me just in case if they pick me up.
Yes, I know, which I can't even believe we have to talk like that. But you're legal, but you're saying a judge could reverse your naturalization and they could put you on a plane back to Iran.
If they wanted to, they could. I remember last year, I kept saying, we can't let Kamala be elected because she will make a deal with Iran, revoke citizenship and naturalization of Iranians, and hand us over. Did I ever think I'm going to ask for you to check in on me to make sure I'm still in America under Trump? No, I didn't. What I thought Kamala Harris would do is what Trump administration just did.
And I'd like to know who's responsible for this.
Me too. I am working my way all the way up to Homan. I have written a few letters already today. I don't know if I get answers, but I would like to know who made that deal and why that deal was even made.
Send me that information because I know one of the guys working very closely with Homan.
Absolutely. I'll send those to you as well. But yes, I will keep digging and I will pile a list of every name that was deported, either those legal, illegal Christians, Baha'is, ex-Muslims. We'll see if one of those 120 was even a Muslim Iranian, because I highly doubt it. Iran wouldn't want their soldiers back, would they? No, they would want dissidents back. So they could hang them at 5 a.m. every morning, making an example out of them, and tell the rest of us over here, watch out, because we could get you back if we wanted to.
All right, Annie, you need to stay on this. Let's keep reporting. As always, we appreciate what you do. LiveUpToFreedom.com, LiveUpToFreedom.com. Anni Cyrus. Thank you, Annie.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brannon. Stay safe.
You stay safe. Wow. We'll be right back, folks.
Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to thank you for all your support at WVWFoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at WVWFoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at WVWFoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline, as it happens.
Joining me now is Dr. Lana. You know, Dr. Lana, I have heard glutathione talked about in the news more in the last 7 days than I think I ever have. With the talk of Tylenol pulling glutathione out of your body, that, you know, kids get Tylenol, maybe children's Tylenol after they have had the shots and they have a high fever, and they get children's Tylenol, the liquid kind, you know, the little dropper. I have to wonder, would that pull glutathione out of that child's body along with a vaccine? So would it be a double whammy of something pulling glutathione out of their body?
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Isn't God good? We've known about glutathione for so long now, and now America knows about glutathione. So God works in mysterious ways, number one. And yes, what you just said is absolutely true, because the child or the adult, the human being, with injections or any medications, is taking a hit in their glutathione levels. So that's dropping their glutathione. And then number two, and this is just, you know, the path of a mom, a well-meaning parent takes their child into the pediatrician's office, and they're getting injections for well care visits. And then the child spikes a fever and the child's crying, and sometimes they get skin rashes. And so the doctor, the pediatrician, you know, innocently, according to their training, says just give the child or infant children's Tylenol or Tylenol, acetaminophen. And there's a time and a place for acetaminophen. So we can't just say sometimes you don't take Tylenol or don't take a medication. Sometimes we need it. But the facts are that medications, and yes, that includes acetaminophen, and Tylenol is acetaminophen, lowers your glutathione stores, no matter your age. And glutathione is needed for life. You know, glutathione is needed to breathe. Glutathione, your liver needs glutathione. Your brain needs glutathione. Glutathione reduces inflammation. Glutathione's a master detoxifier. It pulls heavy metals and toxins and chemicals from your brain and your body every day. That's why this swish with the microscopic glutathione suspended in pure water is just a beautiful, beautiful wellness tool for you to have in your home. Absolutely.
So how much information is there on reversing autism and these problems derived from both vaccines and or Tylenol? Is there a study that shows if you get the kids glutathione, you can reverse some of the damage?
Well, you have to be careful with that, because you can't do studies on, like, you know, pregnant women, obviously, and children when you're dealing with minors under 18. But, and I'll talk about this at your amazing conference this weekend. And there are, what you can find, according to studies in glutathione, is there's over 191,000 studies on glutathione, showing the need for glutathione, showing the issues and health issues that arise when your glutathione levels drop. 191,000 studies on PubMed.gov. You all know that's the National Library of Medicine that houses gold standard studies. So there are 191,000 studies on glutathione that you can educate yourself on. Glutathione performs almost 400 functions in your body, no matter your age. So as far as studies on children and all of that, that's a tough road because they're minors. But you can go back and look at PubMed.gov, and I mean, spend probably years reading them. There's almost 200,000 studies on glutathione. One more point is to put that in perspective. Most people think vitamin C is important. It is important. There's about almost 80,000 studies, 75,000 studies on vitamin C, okay? There's 191,000 studies on glutathione. Glutathione is the most studied molecule in medicine. It's critically important for life. So people want to do the research. It's a tough road, again, to do studies on minors, but the studies exist.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, I swish with it now more than ever. We're trying to stay healthy going into our conference this fall. So I've been swishing about 3 or 4 times a day with it. So there you go. And I may keep it up. I may just keep that up.
Oh, absolutely. I will share that you cannot get hurt on this glutathione. You know, I'm on the medical board there, and I'm very friendly with the scientist who's a lovely, beautiful, conservative man. The whole C-suite in that company is beautiful Christians. Long story short, the scientist told me, I said, what is the toxic load? There's a toxic load on everything. Okay. There's a toxic load on broccoli. Like there's a toxic load, on water. You know, you can't have too much of a good thing. You know what the toxic load is on this glutathione swish?
What?
You would have to drink 1,700 bottles of the Numi Swish in one day. And then you better get rushed to the hospital because you got a toxic load. Who is going to drink 1,700 bottles of it? No one. And it's microscopic. It's in water that's more pure than a hospital IV. It is the glutathione swish and the phytoplankton are like a perfect marriage because your brain needs nutrients and your brain also needs glutathione. So the gadolinium and phytoplankton are the nutrition and the glutathione swish is the glutathione. And that helps reduce inflammation in your brain and inflammation in your body. Critically important is the gadolinium phytoplankton and the Numi glutathione swish.
And you know, with all that we now know about glutathione, if you asked your average family practitioner, what is glutathione, would most of them even know what it is?
You would have to go back. The honest ones would say, I know I learned about that in medical school. And, you know, the really honest ones would say, geez, I need to go look that up. And I'm a board certified naturopathic doctor. So I absolutely knew what it was, studied it for 20 years. So a lot of them, the honest ones will say they won't know.
The point I'm making is when this is so important, why would every American not know about glutathione?
I know. And I really believe this, everyone, and Brannon, from the bottom of my heart and soul. I know that was scary, and autism and the rates of autism are just heart-wrenching, and we know why that's occurring. But I really, really believe that God has his hand on this country, and that was God working to help educate America about a life-sustaining molecule, glutathione. It took something like that. And it took, our president who is, we need him. So we need number 47 in the White House. But it took a sweeping statement like that to jolt everybody and to bring glutathione to the forefront. Because every American family should have bottles of Numi glutathione swish.
And we keep like 10 or 11 bottles on hand at all times.
Absolutely. And it's worth it because it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars if you don't stay out of the medical system and if you don't learn this and if you don't become your own health advocate.
It's 5 times more dangerous to get into the medical system. You have 5 times more likely chance of dying in the medical system, according to the study we dealt with Nicholas Holscher. 5 times more likely to die once you get into the medical system than you are from a gunshot.
Absolutely. And I'm going to help everybody with that too. There are protocols to help you stay healthy. No one's God, but it is high time, and I've said this over again, that Americans take their health into their own hands. You still need a medical doctor. You can't be foolish. You still need a chart somewhere, but I'm going to teach people how to navigate the medical system and so that they can stay healthy and live with longevity, independence, and vitality.
Well, I won't get into details now to protect privacy, but we have a extended family member going through a medical crisis right now. And they went to the emergency room and they sat for 9 hours in a wheelchair and were never seen, other than they drew a little blood, left this individual sitting in a wheelchair for 9 hours. And after 9 hours, they finally were taken by their family member back home. Now the individual has declined into much worse health, maybe to a point it can't be reversed. Even though Melissa, with a background in medical social work, me asking grok questions, I can tell you right now, from what she has studied, what I studied, I can tell you right now what should be happening, but it's not. Because the hospital system is so messed up. it is beyond believable. And extended family members who don't watch this broadcast are saying to my wife, I heard one on speakerphone say, our hospital system is so messed up. The hospital health system so messed up, and going on about it like, we don't know this. I'm like, I don't think they understand that we've been telling people that since 2020 with COVID, and they're just now coming to a realization of it with a personal experience that's heartbreaking. But you're going to watch family members who could be saved die because the medical system is that overloaded, whether it's due to, illegal immigration, socialized medicine, whatever it is. But you would think that you could get someone in a bad situation into the hospital, into a room, and be seen immediately. But that's not the case in a lot of circumstances, and the person slowly dies. So all I can say is I am more afraid of ending up in a hospital than almost anything, because you are helpless and you are at their mercy, and you never want to be that way because of how third world our medical system has become now. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I'll tell a quick story at the conference. But just the nutshell is, I won't get into all the details, that my husband had to have surgery, not anything because of his health. It actually was a spine surgery. However, he almost died 3 times. 3 major medical mistakes, not from the orthopedic surgeon, by the way, but 3 medical mistakes. And honestly, I give my education to God, all glory to God for my rare education. If I didn't know what I know, and I say that with all humility because it's Jesus and God, right? Get the credit for what we know. If I didn't have my education, he would have been dead. He would have died. 3 medical mistakes, major medical mistakes in a big, major hospital system in this country. Happens all the time. I'm absolutely going to have something and help your audience and help everyone at the conference, because you will not learn this elsewhere. I think there's about 300 healthcare professionals, doctors trained like I was. And I thank God for that every day. And it's an honor to help y'all even a little bit here, as I'm on every now and then.
And finally, the glutathione, which I do every day. Tell me how powerful that is with my Bella Grace and with my Gatatana, which is the phytoplankton.
Your trifecta here. So the glutathione is your master anti-inflammatory, detoxifier, antioxidant. It's your oxygen. We die without glutathione. That's just, you physically can't breathe without it. So how important is that? That Numi glutathione swish is air in a bottle, oxygen in a bottle. Moving over to the phytoplankton, it is God's pure, tiny, comprehensive nutrition that gets inside your cells. Your brain needs zinc. Your brain needs vitamins and minerals. Your body to reduce inflammation, like your blood sugar needs magnesium, okay? You need omega-3 fatty acids. Just because you eat a healthy diet, most people's gut microbiome is disrupted. So that phytoplankton ensures that those nutrients that your brain needs to reduce inflammation, your body needs to reduce inflammation, your blood sugar needs to balance, is in that Gatatana phytoplankton in the tetrasod. Brilliant. It's God's microscopic nutrition. Every single family member should take a scoop of that phytoplankton every day. The Bella Grace is allowing now, more important than ever. And the cat's claw in it, yes, it helps people with their joints and helps them feel better. However, Dr. Miller put astaxanthin in that Bella Grace. And notice I'm not even talking about calcium. And I want to look younger like everyone else. And I mean, collagen, I said calcium, I misspoke. I'm not even talking about the collagen that's in there. It's the highest quality collagen in the world. But he put astaxanthin in that Bella Grace elixir, and that crosses the blood-brain barrier. So that helps your brain with issues as well, like inflammation. So the astaxanthin that's in the Bellagrace, I'm a big fan of that. You've got to have nutrients get in your cells. The only way to do that for sure is the Global Phytoplankton Alliance, Gatatana or Tetrasod, every single day for every family member, no matter their age, needs phytoplankton. That's God's food. It's food. You can't get hurt on it. Every family member needs a scoop a day, and your dogs and cats. And then, we can't breathe without glutathione. And if you want to reduce all the issues with your medications, acetaminophen, if you've taken Aleve or Tylenol, or you're on hypertensive medication for cholesterol, high blood pressure, you absolutely need glutathione a few times a day to start reducing the inflammation and detoxifying all of those chemicals and toxins from the medicines.
Awesome. There you go. Melissa Howse GPA, or go to the page, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Find all of them. Looking forward to having you with us this weekend here in the Mid-South, Dr. Lana.
Yes, me too. God bless everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Remember now, I won't be here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, unless there's major breaking news. And if there is, I'll be right back. I'll get on the air as quick as I can, even if I have to do it from backstage at our national conference this weekend, which I hope many of you will live stream. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. And pray for us, will you? Pray for safety in travel, health, good health for everybody, speakers and attendees alike. And we look forward to being back with you, Lord willing, Monday. It's a great report. All right, roll the music. Let's call it a night. Worldviewfoundation.com. If you appreciate all that we push out, with only one agenda, really, which is to push out truth, push out a Christian worldview, help people understand the times through the lens of that Christian worldview. If you appreciate that, we appreciate your support. Worldviewfoundation.com. So next time, I'm Brannon Howse. May God save America. Take care.
Moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
Welcome to the broadcast. Glad you're with us. So last night's TV show hit record numbers, as bigger than the night that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Now that really shocks me, because last night we were discussing this peace plan and the problems with it, with Dr. Andy Woods, Anni Cyrus, Dr. Rob Lindstedt, Patrick Wood. And it was about 2 hours, and the numbers held for the entire program. And it's still doing good in replay. And only 3 negative comments related to those who are part of the MAGA cult. And I'm starting to call it a MAGA cult for those who cannot see what is happening. We are not paid by the White House. We don't get favors from the White House. We're not paid by his campaign. We, Lord willing, will be here long after his administration. So we are going to speak truth, whether people like it or not. And I would think that people that appreciate the idea of America first, our borders, our language, our culture, as Michael Savage used to say, still does probably. Those of us who agree with the president's agenda as he laid it out when he first ran for president the first term, which this is turning out to be a completely different man in many regards than the first term. But I can appreciate and agree with his policies without being a cult member. But if people want to check their brains at the door, go for it. But we didn't do that with George W. We warned you after 9/11 that the Patriot Act was bad. And as I've told you, we were called names, called unpatriotic, all kinds of names. Well, what we said was borne out to be true. Now, all the people that criticize us want to act like they were in the same boat with us at the same time. No, they weren't. So if you want to be a MAGA cult follower, then go for it. But if you want to be committed to truth than be committed to truth. I'm going to have Shahram Hadian on here to talk about the peace plan. The idea that we're going to have a peace board, as I dealt with last night and yesterday a little bit, with Tony Blair, who I warned about in my 2016 book, The Coming Religious Reich, is a globalist, a Fabian socialist, a New World Order guy. But he was for you being double vaxxed, COVID passports. He's still wanting every one of us to have digital passports to turn us on and turn us off. And I don't care that he sells it with the idea of privacy. It's called privacy. I know that's what they say over there. But if he wants to sell it with, it's going to have privacy, then your local grocery store will have more on you than the government. Well, that's a lie. Your local grocery store isn't going to turn your digits off when you say something they don't like. And they're already arresting people in the UK for simply calling police officers a muppet or stating the truth about Islam. So if people want to believe that guy, this little antichrist, as I think he is, Jimmy DeYoung used to tell us he was on the short list. He thought that Tony Blair's on the short list to be the antichrist. Well, I don't know, but he's certainly, I think, a little antichrist. Now, if you're going to pick that guy who's been involved in the interfaith dialogue, you know that, right? Tony Blair has been